Welcome back to the WVU Percussion Online Academy. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about samba and the music of samba from Brazil. What I'd like to do with this is show you a variety of instruments that are used in samba, plus the compositional design of how samba is created. To really look at this in detail, we're going to start with this instrument. This is the Brazilian tambourine called the pandeiro. It's very similar to a normal tambourine that you might use in an orchestral setting, with one difference. The jingles on here, we only have a single row of jingles, and there's a thin metal plate in there. So when we get the jingle sound, it's a very dry sound. So it's not as washy as you would see in like an orchestral tambourine. The technique to playing the pandeiro is also a little bit different. Here we're going to hold it in our non-dominant hand, and we're going to do a lot of extended techniques with our right hand or our dominant hand. What I'd like to do is I'll play a little bit first just to hear what the samba group sounds like on this instrument, and then we'll break it down. So a typical samba. Sound like that. So this motion that I'm using with my right hand is a variety of sounds. The first one we want to look at is really how do we create the melody of samba. And in order to do so, I'm using my middle finger here on the back of the head, which is muting the head every time my thumb hits, or every other time that my thumb hits. So I can get, using my thumb near the edge, I can get this open sound, or if I mute it, using the finger underneath, I get a high sound. So if we break down the most basic part of samba, similar to how we looked at the African and the Latin ideas, we can create this melody. Bing, bing, boom, bing, high, low, high, low, high, low. And this really becomes the foundation for everything that we're looking at. So rather than have a timeline or a bell or a clave cycle like we've heard before, we really want to focus on this melody. Bing, boom, bing, boom, bing, boom, bing, boom. And everything is going to relate to that. The rest of what the hand is doing is really providing the groove. So using that jingle and using sort of a heel toe in my right hand, I'm getting that subdivision within that melody. So what I'm using here, I'm using my fingertips near this edge and the back of my hand on this edge of the pandeiro to really get that subdivision. To create our pattern, we're going to put the thumb on every downbeat. So without the muting for a second, we're just going to have 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, slower. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So the thumb always hits here first. Thumb, fingers, heel, fingers. Thumb, fingers, heel, fingers. Thumb, fingers, heel, fingers. In order to get that. So even if you don't have a pandeiro at home and you just wanted to practice on your hand, thumb, fingers, heel, fingers, thumb, fingers, heel, fingers. So we can work on this motion anytime we want. Thumb, fingers, heel, fingers, thumb, fingers, heel, fingers, even if we're not at the instrument. Now to add that back in, I'll add the muting again just on the downbeat. So we'd have 1, 2, closed, open, mute, open, mute, open, mute, open, mute, open, mute, open, mute, open, open, mute, open. just from this instrument here. Now, if you were to look at the big samba schools of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, you'll see huge ensembles that will play what's called in the School de Samba or Escola de Samba style, where they have maybe 300-400 people in a bateria comprised of a variety of different drums. And even this idea of samba still comes from this basic idea on the pandero. So we still have this melody and this subdivision. In order for them to achieve this sound, we need, of course, many other drums and bigger drums. So in order to get the melody, we'll look at this drum here. This drum is called a surdo. The surdo is basically just a bass drum that they would use in a samba parade. You can have a variety of different sizes. This one's about 16-inch. You can get them all the way up to 24 inches. The head, if you notice, the head is a little bit different. This is sort of what's called a Napa head, and it's really just almost like a leather covering that's over the mylar head that's underneath. So we have a single mylar head on the top and the bottom, and then this additional covering on the top to really give it a warm, focused sound. So we can really hear that full ring, that full tone of the drum. Now, in order to create that same melody that I had on the pandero, bing, boom, bing, boom, I'm going to use a mallet in my dominant hand, and I'm going to keep my other hand open so I can mute the drum. So if I'm still thinking about that melody, bing, boom, bing, boom, bing, boom, bing, boom, bing, boom, bing. So always the emphasis is on 2. So if we're thinking 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. We always have that emphasis on the second beat. Now if we had other different sizes, if this were the higher drum, then the low drum would be on beat 2. There's a sort of the hierarchy of names in Brazil, as we call it. We have surdo de primeira, or the primary surdo. Always plays on beat 2. That would be the lowest drum that we have. Surdo de segunda, or the second surdo part, would always be a little bit higher and play on the downbeat. So that way you would always have high, low, to recreate that same melody here. Bing, boom, bing, boom, bing, boom, bing. If you want to add a little bit of accent with a non-dominant hand, we can also use that as a sound itself on the head. So the surdo gives us our primary melody for the groove that we're going to create in this ensemble. Moving to our subdivision, just like we had if we think about the pandero again, we have this. We can get that from the shaker. Now the shaker comes in a variety of sizes. Here's a relatively small. I'm going to put the accent on the beat. So if I want bing, boom, bing, boom, bing, boom, bing, boom, bing, boom, bing, boom, boom, bing, boom, bing, boom, bing, boom. I can play with a small shaker. We can move up to a metal shaker with 2 hands. Which gives us a little bit of a brighter sound. Or the shokayo. which is often found in Brazil, which is actually here's just rows of the pandeiro jingles themselves. So this we still hold the same way as the shaker, and it plays the same part. A 1, 2, 1, 2. So we really get, now imagine if we had 15 or 20 of these in a line, you could really get an idea of how loud this ensemble might be. Another instrument that would also serve this idea of breaking up or supplying the subdivision for the ensemble is this instrument here called the heko-heko. The heko-heko is a metal body, which is hollow in the middle, and it has a set of springs on the top. And you strike it with a beater, or basically like a wiro. Scrape it with a wiro. So I can use that same accent pattern that I had on the shakers before. 1, 2, 1, 2. To also fill in that sound and fill in that groove. So what we've looked at so far, we looked at the pandeiro, the basic of the basic foundation of the samba, where we have the melody and our subdivision. In the next video, we're going to look at some instruments that you use to embellish the school of the samba.